I'll bring the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting to order for Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. Can we please have a roll?
1 presiding, 10 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Please let the record reflect that Commissioner Shea is excused for the evening. Next item is prayer and the pledge. Commissioner Walker, would you lead us in that, please?
Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which so greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item on tonight's agenda is any public comment on any items that are on the agenda. If there's a member of the public that wants to speak on anything that is on tonight's agenda, please come up to the podium and state your name and address and what communication you would like to discuss. And I believe on the bottom of that microphone, if you push, there you go. Welcome.
Got it now?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, my name is Riley Haas, residing at 118 Milky Way here in Butte, speaking on communication number 7. As a professional firefighter and paramedic in Butte-Silver Fire Department, a past volunteer firefighter with the Racetrack Volunteer Fire Department, and a professional EMS provider for over a decade, I cannot express enough how the operation and safety of this community's fire service will improve with the passing of House Bill 547. The fire service in Butte has the ability to be exceptional. However, this potential is presently hindered by state law versus local charter, creating ambiguity in the chain of command in regard to the rural fire districts and our unique consolidated city-county government. Should House Bill 547 pass, I assure you that the local charter in Butte-Silver is very clear in defining that there will be a fire department consisting of both career and volunteer individuals. It also outlines that the Director of Fire Services will have the ultimate oversight for such services. The Director of Fire Services reports to the local government officials as a non-elected official. Under no circumstances will this bill have any effect beyond returning control to our local officials who ensure that an appropriate emergency response to our citizens. House Bill 547 will establish a chain of command as most other any successful organization might have. Without this bill, local officials will remain unable to implement collaborative training, efficient emergency response plans, fiscally prudent budgeting, and structured fireground operations, thus creating unnecessary liability for Butte-Silver. All of the proceedings are necessary to ensure that the fire service personnel, both career and volunteer alike, return home safely to their families each day. Implementation of the above is also what ensures exceptional service to the citizens whom we serve. I'd also like to dispel any confusion about the effects of House Bill 547. House Bill 547 will not eliminate any of our volunteer personnel, apparatus, or stations, nor will it raise our community's insurance rates or affect volunteer pensions. Butte-Silver has an ISO class rating of a 410. This means that any property that is within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant and within 5 miles of a fire station is classified as a 4. And everything outside of this 5-mile radius is classified as a 10. No language in House Bill 547 moves fire hydrants nor fire stations, meaning our urban and rural communities will maintain the same ISO rating and insurance rates. House Bill 547 also has specific language within to protect the pensions of our volunteer firefighters who serve our community, ensuring that their service to our community is honored. Volunteers are necessary in our community and will remain such after the passing of House Bill 547. Many have stated that they wish for this bill to have been addressed at a local level. This is precisely what House Bill 547 does. It returns control to Butte-Silver from the state legislature. This means that should something within our fire service need to change, it will be addressable locally for the first time in nearly 50 years. I believe that nearly 50 years is enough time for us to have addressed these issues at a local level, if we were able to do such. History repeats itself, and even today, we are apparently indecisive on how we handle our fire service. At the October 23, 2024 Council of Commissioners meeting in regard to the Butte-Silver Fire Advisory Committee, Commissioner Fisher challenged Chief Executive Gallagher, "I would like to see you, Chief Executive Gallagher, take charge." He then told the Director of Fire Services, Chief Osborne, "It is your job to be a leader." Tonight, House Bill 547 is on the agenda, and we are questioning Chief Executive Gallagher taking charge and Chief Osborne acting as a leader to bring a resolution to nearly 5 decades of issues. In closing, House Bill 547 is a cleanup bill, which allows for the execution of our local charter. A worthy bill which helps us define the role of the Director of Fire Services, as was recommended in the fire service study presented to this council last week. House Bill 547 will correct nearly 5 decades where our local officials, commissioners such as yourself, have been unable to implement local change due to the confine and restraint of state law. Your support is necessary to create a safer, more efficient, fiscally prudent fire service in Butte-Silver Bow. Both myself, my family, and our community appreciate you and your understanding in ensuring a safe return home of both career and volunteer personnel alike after serving those in their time of need. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak? Welcome. Please state your name, address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jake Hanley. I work for the Butte-Silver Bow Professional Fire Department. I reside at 3485 Quincy, and I'm here tonight to talk to you about House Bill 547. Council Chair Morgan, members of the council, thank you for allowing me to speak with you this evening. My name is Jake Hanley. I'm a professional firefighter with the Butte-Silver Bow Fire Department, as well as the Secretary of IAFF Local Number 96. Speaking to you today in strong support of House Bill 547, I've been in the fire service for 15 years, with most of that time being spent in the volunteer service. I believe that the time spent on both sides gives me unique insight into how both the paid and volunteer sides operate. This bill is important to us, as you have all heard. This bill is about enhancing public safety in our community, and it will allow us to have a clear chain of command structure on all incidents that we engage in with our volunteer partners. Far too often, we find ourselves operating on incidents where the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. And this is due to the fact that there is no clear definition between our city-county charter and the state law as to who has operational command of the fireground incidents in which we respond to. If this bill is passed, it will give us clear definition on this issue. It is in no way a bill to eliminate volunteer firefighters in Butte-Silver Bow. As a matter of fact, we need our volunteer departments to help supplement our response with manpower and apparatus, especially in areas that are not protected by fire hydrants. Furthermore, volunteers cannot survive on their own as well. They need a well-trained municipal fire department to supplement them. It is paramount in any organization to have one clearly defined leader who can delegate the needs of the organization to the command structure below them. This clears up confusion, streamlines operational tactics, and helps to meet training and safety standards of said organization. This bill ensures that all the things that I mentioned are being accomplished for not only the safety of the fire personnel, but more importantly, the citizens of Butte-Silver Bow, who rely on us to respond to their emergencies and provide the best service possible. It is my belief that we are fortunate enough to be given this opportunity, and we owe it to the public to keep them safe. So I strongly encourage your support on House Bill 547. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak on any item that's on tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, I will move on to the report of the chair. A couple of things that I want to mention. We've been working with BSB's IT department and Miss Davies about the possibility of having our committee meetings streamed, so people are able to jump onto the streaming channel and listen to the meetings. And so next week we're going to do a trial run on that opportunity for the meetings to be broadcasted on the internet. I will say that it is a trial just to see how it works. There's going to have to be a couple of changes to this room in regards to conversations that happen before the council meetings, because we will have to be sitting at this table with the microphones on, and the chairs will have to use them to be utilized, and so we'll have to work through the logistics of that. But the conversations in the background and up here, we'll have to keep them at a minimum so that people are able to hear what's going on in the meeting. So pretty excited about that. I think it'll be a good opportunity if we can get it working correctly. The other comment that I would make from tonight is there was supposed to be a bid opening tonight for Communication 124. It was inadvertently missed on tonight's agenda, and so we will be holding that bid opening next week on April 2nd for the regular meeting. And that again is for Communication 124. Just want the public to be aware that it was accidentally left off tonight's agenda. So that'll be taking place on April 2nd. Those are the only two housekeeping items that I have for tonight, so I'll move on to Section 1. Communications, Communication 2025-80. Zach Osborne, Butte-Silver Bow Fire Chief, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation on March 19th, 2025 to present a final draft of a long-range master plan for the Butte-Silver Bow Fire Department. We did hold this presentation last week, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-80.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place Communication 2025-80 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Okay, would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay. 0 nay.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to number 2, Communication 2025-90, Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a bid opening on March 19th, 2025 for the Howard Avenue Total Reconstruction Project for the Roads Division. We did hold that bid opening last week, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-90.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place Communication 25-90 on file. Is there anything on? Would everyone please vote? Okay, would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay. 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 3, Communication 2025-122, Karen Malachny, Butte-Silver Bow Health Officer, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 19th, 2025 for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 24-25 budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue resulting from a contract award with the Montana Department of Health and Human Services in the amount of $102,499. We did hold this public hearing last week as well. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-122.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place Communication 2025-122 on file. Is there anything on the question? Please vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 4, Communication 2025-142. Zach Osborne, Butte-Silver Bow Fire Chief, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on April 2nd, 2025 for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 24-25 fire department budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending the public hearing on April 2nd. Number 5, Communication 2025-143, Audrey Japp, Butte-Silver Bow Archives Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation on April 9th, 2025 regarding the Archives 24 annual report. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending the presentation on April 9th. Number 6, Communication 2025-155, Lisa Carey, Emergency Management Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on April 16th, 2025 for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 24-25 budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue received from the State Homeland Security Grant Program in the amount of $114,613. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending the public hearing on April 16th. Number 7, Communication 2025-158, Jim Fisher, District 6 Commissioner, requesting Council of Commissioners for time on the March 26, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting to discuss House Bill number 547. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Here we are again. This is where this discussion should have started, right here. Should have started in the council chambers, and, in my opinion, should have been visited here, vented here, and then brought to the proper channels to see if we wanted to have a bill go to the legislature. We hear a lot about transparency. Well, we weren't even notified of the bill as commissioners until February 26th. My understanding with visiting with Representative Harvey, this bill was in the works in November of 2023. So what's the big secret? We always hear from everybody that there are no secret meetings. We've never had no secret meetings. Well, let me tell you what. There had to be some secret meetings here because Representative Damaris from Anaconda, Harvey, Chief Executive Gallagher, and probably Pat Noonan, I don't know for sure, but there's a group of them had to be meeting about this when Michelle Shea was still chairman of the council. And I hear all kinds of rumors about who started this and who didn't bring it up and who didn't. Well, we didn't hear about it. No one heard about it. I don't know if any of the paid firemen heard about it or the volunteer firemen heard about it. This is where it should have started, and this is why I brought this communication up, and hopefully we can discuss it tonight. But if I could, Chairman, for a minute, explain, because I'm probably one of the only ones sitting on this council that's old enough that can tell you what took place in 1977 when the city annexed the county. The city annexed the county, and the city at that time had 11 or 12 aldermen. The county had 3 commissioners. They consolidated because the city was no longer able to afford what they're doing because people in the city were paid city and county taxes. The people in the county were only paying county taxes. So they convinced everyone that this was the best thing to do, and it probably was the best thing to do. But when they done the consolidation, the city was ending at Front Street, and then it was moving to Dewey Boulevard. Then it moved to Row Road. Now we're all the way out into the industrial park. So things have changed, no doubt, and things got to change. But the process and procedure for this bill to come to us the day that it's going to be heard or the day before it's going to be heard in Helena is lack of transparency, it's lack of communication, and here's why we're here today. The next hearing is Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and here we are today still in the same boat. Now, one of the members did mention over here that I asked JP to take control of this, and I asked Zach to be a leader. That is what I asked. I didn't ask him to do an end around or a quarterback sneak on us and they'll go do this in their office. JP has always been fair and honest, said, we're going to let you guys know. We hired a lobbyist for $15,000. I see you got a check today for $6,000 on the check run. You got a check for $6,000. Whose duty is it to report to the Council of Commissioners, the legislative body of this government, that we're going to have something like that affect our community? Now you know what we got? 55 counties plus Butte-Silver Bow, 100 members of the representatives voting on what's going to happen in Butte-Silver Bow. Now tell me if that isn't a shame that all these people from Glasgow, Eureka to Ekalaka and back, from Dillon over to east of Billings, Miles City, they're going to tell us how we should run Butte-Silver Bow. You know what? We're up against the blade. The vote last time was 76 to 24. I got more emails from the paid fire department this last week or so asking me to support this. Most of them weren't even around in 1977, 79, when this took place. I ain't saying that this is the wrong thing to do. I'm saying the process and procedure was wrong. Now we're going to let a bunch of people from out of our community tell us how to run our community. That's not Butte, people. That's not what we do in Butte, Montana. That's not what we do after we consolidated the government in 1977. When they consolidated the government, that's when they went to the legislature in 1979 and passed a bill that said consolidated government would not affect the volunteer fire departments. Well, let me tell you what, the devil's in the details now, because they're saying it's not going to happen. But I'm going to tell you what, you come back and ask me in 3 years if they aren't going to close 3 or 4 fire departments. Maybe a good idea, I don't know. But don't you think that should be a decision that's made by more than just the chief executive at the time and the fire chief, fire coordinator? These are decisions that should be made by the public. Just like when we consolidated the government, we voted on it. It was a close vote. It wasn't a runaway slide that City of Butte was going to annex the county. It was a close vote. It was a hard-fought contest. Now what we're doing is letting somebody else make this decision. So what I'm asking for, with the approval of the chairman and this council, I would like to hear from both sides of it a little bit. And I hope I don't have to call in people individually to visit or come up here and state. But I mean, I agree, but look at all the paid firemen here. If this bill is so good, how come the support is coming from all paid employees of the county? And none of the opposition is coming from paid employees of the county. It makes no sense to me that we're in this mess. And we voted for a study commission to help us out with this. But yet, we weren't informed. I'm sorry, JP and I are good friends. We've been friends for years. We will remain good friends. But the process and procedure was wrong.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Is there any questions from the other commissioners? Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chairman Morgan. I was rather dismayed when I heard this bill being drafted and being told about it last minute. I was a member of the Armed Forces for 8 years, and very important that you have a strong chain of command and understanding of what is going on, and for everybody to know what's going on when it affects them and when processes come before or operations come before, so on and so forth. And I couldn't agree more with the fire department. I also received a ton of emails on this in support of it, but one of the things that I was disappointed in was I felt that the commission was kind of bypassed. The commissioners, all of us in this room, were kind of bypassed in this process. I understand that it's something that had to be done at the state level, but it would have been nice if we were made aware of some of these situations. It would have been nice when we're talking about getting along and we have so much contention between the two departments, the paid department and the volunteer departments. It would have been nice if that communication was going through. And I don't know who dropped the ball. I don't know who came up with this plan or when they came up with this plan. I think it's probably a good plan. I don't know. I'd have to dig into it a lot more. I read through the bill a little bit. There's a lot of it that I don't understand. There's a lot of language that has me concerned that they could do just as Commissioner Fisher said and do away with some of the volunteer departments. I hope that's not the case, but it's like he said, the devil's in the details. And from what I've seen so far, the details of this doesn't give me much promise. I don't like the way it was carried out. It was written with plenty of time to give everybody the courtesy of knowing what was going on so we could have had these discussions before the bill reached. Anything we say and do tonight is pretty much a moot point when they're going to be discussing this in 3 days. So anything that we say tonight, I doubt will make it to Helena. Hopefully some of you will be in Helena. Maybe some of us will be in Helena and speak on this and share, or even pull up a YouTube video of this in our comments tonight and say, hey, you know what? Maybe it's best that we let Butte make the decisions that affect Butte. One of the things I've learned in the last 14 years I've served on this body is that the laws that we make affect everybody. The laws that in the community, in our community of Butte-Silver Bow, the laws that the state make should represent the citizens of the entire state of Montana, not small individual pockets of Montana. I know sometimes that's unavoidable. I know that that's not always the case, but I think that is the best practice. And when you are doing something and putting together legislation like this, I think the drafters of this and the people who knew about it, I'm not going to name names, but I think we all know who we're talking about. It would have been very good of them to give us a heads up on this and not to be railroaded by it, like I felt that we are. So I understand where you're all coming from. I have benefited from the paramedics and the fire. I think everybody saw a YouTube video a few years ago of a lot of you running up here to offer me aid when I was in a rather stressful situation and got me out of there, so I'm still able to talk and voice my concerns. You know, I have a great deal of love and passion for what you, all of you gentlemen, do. When I was a little kid, my brother and I had a little fireman hat and a little police officer hat, and we'd make fires in the backyard, and we'd play cops and robbers, and every little boy, I think, wants to be a fireman at some point in time. I think it's why we have such a great volunteer crew. And I would hate to see a lot of these stations shut down. I worked with, in a small degree, with a couple of people on the paid department when they were working for EMS, and their dedication and skill in the job is fabulous. You know, I trust either one of you two who spoke tonight with my life. I pretty much have in some cases. But, you know, you all have a very difficult job to do. We up here have a very difficult job to do. We're not jumping into a burning building or anything, but we're trying to give you guys the best outcome that we possibly can. And when our hands are tied behind our back and we don't get all the information we need to put together decisions, then myself and my fellow commissioners up here are unable to give you the proper time and respect and diligence into looking what we can best do to serve our community. So whereas I'm not sure if this is going to be a great bill or a bad bill in 5 years, time will tell, but I'm pretty sure it will pass. And we'll find out in a few years. But I hope in the future that when people and parties are putting these together, that they have the courtesy of letting the people know who will be affected by it and give them the opportunity to comment on it, to make suggestions and ideas on how these things should be written out. All too often that's lost in the way politics is how it works. So with that, I'm done, but good luck and safe travels when you're heading back and forth from Helena. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Callahan, did you still want to speak?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thanks, fellas, for coming. I want to thank the paid department and the volunteer department for the services you guys give us. We know this has been contentious for years. I got put on, when I got elected to the council over 8 years ago, I was forced, Commissioner Dan Olson and I were both freshman councilmen. We were forced to be on that advisory committee. We were told, this is the committee you're on, show up and do your job. So we did that. And we didn't know what to expect. Nobody else on the council wanted that job because it has been hostile. But we found out different. And some of you fellows back there on both sides were part of that. And you saw things did work fairly well for 4 years. In fact, when Chief Miller left, he had thanked the committee that was there for the hard work to get this thing back up and running, and we made very, very good progress. He said it had run the best in the 18 years he had been fire chief, and he appreciated that, and we were on a good road. Then all of a sudden, we got a new chief, and things went upside down overnight. And we can keep going back, well, it was hostile for 45 years. It hasn't been. We were going in a good road. You know, we've been inundated with mostly, actually all paid firemen saying, you got to support this. This is great for our community. And we will support that when it's done right. So far, it hasn't been done right. You know, we keep being told it's all about safety of the community. It's all about training. Well, you're not going to close any volunteer fire departments down. I got a document right here on the very first meeting I went to when Zach Osborne was our new fire chief to close fire departments down. This document right here is all about closing fire departments down. So to sit there and tell us this isn't the intention, how can we take that trust? That hasn't been what has been going on in the last 4 years. We're not being told why you guys did this. You guys went through the back door for a reason. And there's lots of things going on in the last 4 years that wasn't going on in my first 4 years. The response plan has been changed. There's numerous things that some of these guys are much more informed about it than I am that can explain to you. I'm a councilman just listening. But to turn around and try to say it's been nasty for 45 years and it isn't ever going to get better, there were people working on trying to make it right. And we were in the right direction, and things went south. And unfortunately, we're right back in a mess again. But to turn around and change the state law that, from what I understand, hasn't been being followed for the last 4 years, things like going and changing rural response plans and things like that, it doesn't speak well for the safety of our community when we're not even sending people to fires. And to me, that is what this whole thing's about, is protecting our community. And to sit here and try to tell us it won't do this and it won't do this, but that isn't the history of the last 4 years. We've seen what's gone on in the last 4 years, and we're not hearing that from these guys that have written us emails to say support this. What you're telling us and what we've seen in the last 4 years isn't consistent. So that there doesn't give us much reason to trust what this bill's going to do. I guess one of the questions we need to ask, the trustees of the volunteer are elected officials. So does this bill automatically take their power away? Does that get rid of the trustees? Nobody seemed to be able to answer these questions. You know, you're mentioning training. In the last 4 years, I don't know how many times Mr. Osborne's come to us to accept grant money and matching money for training. But I don't remember one time there was ever an offer to have one of these volunteers go on them training sessions. You know, you can't complain about the training if these guys aren't even, if you're not allowing them to be part of it. Those kind of things are unfortunate. You're all here for the same reason. And to turn around and say this is a great, great bill, it's in the best interest of the community, unfortunately, that hasn't what I can say I've witnessed in the last 4 years. And like Mr. Fisher said, some of you guys got up and spoke. We've had numerous emails. I think we got to give the opportunity. You know, we got people out here that are nationally certified trainers. They're part of our volunteer department. I don't see anybody giving those people credit. Maybe they want to get up and speak. You want to get up and speak?
Just a point of order. As far as procedures go, you know, this is a communication based on Commissioner Fisher's request. So anybody that would be presenting can be called upon from a commissioner to present something. However, you can't just do a public, free-for-all public hearing, because that is not what the purpose of this communication is for. So if there's somebody that you know that has information regarding this communication that you'd like to hear from, feel free to reach out, but you can't just open it up, because then we're going to be into a public hearing scenario, and that's not the purpose of this communication.
Yes. Raise your hand if you think you want to get up and say something. Come on up. Thank you, sir.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, thank you. Brian Citraro, 2901 Blacktail Loop. I'm a paid firefighter captain. I'll finish my 28th year of service in May. Thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for your interest and your concern. I'm looking at about 3 forks in the road, and if anyone knows me, you don't want me to take all of them, so I'm going to take one, and I'm just going to be abrupt about it. Transparency. In the 28 years I've been in this community and in this department, I don't have the times, I don't have the dates, I have the relevant occurrences, but I remember at least 3 times up until last year was the most recent when Jerry Brothers spoke about declining the offer for a consulting firm to come in and help us, much like a marriage counselor would help a broken marriage. This has been a cold hallway for 50 years, and I've been walking back to back with my spouse for 28 of it. He spoke in transparency, full transparency, that the volunteer fire departments had an outstanding lawsuit, but couldn't talk about the topic, couldn't talk about the remedies, because it was within their lawyer's purview to talk to our county attorney and discuss what may fix this marriage. I was part of a consolidation proposal under Jeff Miller, who was a great director, tried to find balance. I assisted in a consolidation proposal with him in 2005. Nothing to do with what's going on today with state law, but it proposed that 2 fire stations that were 0.6 miles apart, quite an overbufferage of expenditure, overhead, and coverage, were to be considered by 2/3 of the voting members of those 2 districts to consolidate 5 pieces of apparatus into 2 or 3 of the appropriate apparatus for the neighborhood. Every time the director of fire services in my career has tried to make a directive decision, it's been met by lawsuits and or dug in heels, because everyone likes just the way it is. And looks what's changed. When I was hired, there was 1,846 calls in 1997. We're cresting 5,000 every year now for the last couple. Everything has changed. I don't even want to go into any of the other parts that we brought up tonight, because it'll be an unhealthy therapy session, right? Please trust that I didn't grab the front door, I didn't grab the back door. I had nothing to do with House Bill 547. 50 years later, we either need to fire our marriage counselor or we need to get a damn divorce.
Thank you. Just on a couple of comments. One, I would ask for just decorum of everybody, including the council and members of public. This is not a time for us to divide Butte even farther than what we already are by either throwing mud or receiving mud or not. So just as an order of decorum, just keep that in mind as we proceed forward with this. The other thing that I would mention, and House Bill 547 has a title of House Bill 547. It's not a Council of Commissioners decision tonight. This vote, or this hearing that we're talking about tonight, is not something that this body gets to vote on for that. And so it does affect Butte, I agree, but the biggest thing that we have to remember too is that this public hearing is this Friday, I believe, is what Commissioner Fisher said. That is where a lot of this input needs to be at. There are elected officials that are out there for the House, for the Senate, and they are the ones that are making this decision. It's not the Council of Commissioners. Yes, it does affect Butte. There are many bills at the legislature that affect Butte that I, for one, as a chair of the commission, have not received phone calls from anybody to tell me all the bills that are affecting Butte. I've had to take a stance and look for bills that I know are out there and follow through with them. Yes, it would have been nice to have some information on this, but they're out there, and I don't get told every bill that comes before us. So this is a discussion, in my opinion, that could go on forever. I would have a lot of input on both sides, as I was a member of the fire department for many years, and you know, we could spend the next week talking about this. And so I would just ask that we remember a couple of things. One, this is a House bill. And two, I just want to make sure we keep a decorum of what it is, because if we start coming up and throwing things, we're going to end up in a Donnybrook. So let's not do that and just keep the decorums going forward. So any Commissioner, Chief Executive Gallagher, and then Commissioner Healy.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Commissioner Fisher, for bringing this forward. I want to address one comment about that there's secret meetings, and this gets thrown around a lot. I can assure you, and on my mother and father's grave, and if you know me, I wouldn't say this ever, I did not have a meeting with the firemen about this bill in November, in January. In February end of February is when I found out about this bill. And by reading through the bill, I was trying to decide, and working with County Attorney Enruth, deciding if this was a bill that we could support. And once we read through it, I believe I could support it, and here's why. It is about public safety. It is about making the community safer by having a department that works together, by having a chain of command. I will stand by that. I have a lot of friends and family actually in the volunteer fire department. I am not here to try to disband, take away anything that the volunteers do, because they're essential to our community. I want to make that clear. To say that there hasn't been a broken system for 50 years would just be untruthful. It's been broken. And as been talked about, we've gone back and looked at communications that have gone back into the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, into the teens, and then now in 2020. And here we are still having the same discussion, the same issues. To say that we're putting it in the hands of 55 other counties, yeah, we are, but it's the same thing they did in 1979 as well. They let 55 other counties decide that our charter didn't take precedent. So we're in the same boat again, the same conversation that happened back then. So what we're asking, and this, I can assure you, if this 547 is successful, it's to implement that chain of command, to get it so that the fire departments work together, to have trainings that allow them to collaborate services. Because right now, they don't. Every one of these firemen out here do a great job and work hard and try to do the best they can. But wouldn't we be better if they were working together, if they were training together, if they were collaborating their services together? There are issues that come up because of this bill. I'm fully supportive of it. It's caused hard feelings with a number of people within the community. I absolutely understand this. But these hard feelings have been there for 50 years, and they're not going away. It is time that we address these. And Commissioner Fisher is a good friend of mine, and I know that his passion and why he's standing for what he does. But I can tell you why I'm doing what I'm doing, and it is for a matter of public safety, making sure that we are giving the best available service to the public. And so for that, on Friday I will be going back and testifying on House Bill 547 to bring back what our charter says, that the volunteer and paid fire department will be governed under the Director of Fire Services. And 4 years ago, we actually had a different fire chief. It was Chief Doherty. And we started having some of these conversations about it. I've talked to Chief Miller about some of the challenges that he had as well. And things weren't perfect when Chief Miller was here. He did a great job of collaborating and working with people. I will give. He absolutely did, and Brian Straro mentioned that here too. But things weren't all rosy, and everything wasn't, just working well during that time either. We have to look hard at that. Response plan is important. We have technology now that allows that response plan. The response plan used to be they'd have to take out notebooks, thumb through them as 911's trying to decide who's being called out. Technology now allows that response plan to be pre-programmed out so they can be more responsive and quick to sending the equipment that needs to go out there. None of this is going to be perfect, and there's going to be hard feelings about this. But I just want to say one other thing. I go over and testify over a lot of bills. Last week I went over and testified about maintaining the Hard Rock money. I didn't communicate with everybody here because it's the right thing for our community. I testify all the time. It's impossible because they call hearings quickly. I found out about the hearing a week before. I talked with County Attorney Enruth, and we decided that we were going to do this. But we did send out and let people know how we were going to testify. I didn't hide what I was going to do. I sent out to everybody and said, this is what I'm going to do. I don't do that every week on everything that we do. But we thought it was important. The county attorney and I mentioned that and said it was important for us to let people know where we were at. So I just wanted to clear things up. I have no hard feelings towards anyone because this is an emotional topic, and there's people that have dedicated their lives to the volunteer service here, and I understand that. I understand where they're at, and I understand where the paid's at as well. But for me, this is about public safety, and this is why I will support 547.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioner Healy?
Bear with me. I went back and watched the video from the commissioner meeting January 8th. And in that was my first regular meeting as a commissioner. And a significant point of discussion was communication 2025-02. This communication was regarding a vote on the appointment of 3 elected volunteer firefighters to the Fire Advisory Board. Commissioners Morgan, Shea, and Thatcher expressed strong opposition to one of their choices, George Stone. Commissioner Morgan asserted they were not acting in good faith as the volunteers had been asked to replace all 3 of their elected officials so the board could start fresh with moving forward and resolving issues between them and the paid firefighters. Commissioner Morgan believed that he would just be kicking the can down the road, or we would, if all 3 were not replaced. Commissioners Thatcher and Shea supported his views, stating that the volunteers had made a gentleman's agreement to replace all 3 of them. And Chief Executive Gallagher stated that he himself reached out to the volunteers, asking them to reconsider the appointment of George Stone. And then Commissioner Morgan moved a motion to deny the passage of 2025-02, thereby eliminating George Stone on that particular, or allowing them a chance to eliminate him. And George Stone did resign his position, showing that he was going to act in good faith and did want to move forward with communicating. And so he gave up his position. So now I'm looking at this and I'm like going, so they did as they were asked, but in the meantime, this other thing was going on that nobody knew about, and that was House Bill 547. And so we do know that, Senator Harvey, who is also a paid firefighter, it seems like a little conflict of interest, and that being that why weren't the volunteer firefighters included in the discussion? Because this affects them. And it affects the rural community that they serve, a lot. So I guess what really kind of makes me sad about this whole thing, that I'm not speaking out against the House bill. I'm looking at the process, because it wasn't an illegal move. But unfortunately, the one thing that it was successful in doing was causing more division, because the volunteers weren't included, commissioners weren't included. I know they don't have to tell us, but it does affect our community. It doesn't affect Helena. It doesn't affect Bozeman. It affects our community. Some of the other bills might affect the state, but this one affects our community. And I just feel like the volunteers should have had a part in the writing of this bill. And they weren't even told about it. And here they are jumping through all the hoops they're told to jump through so they can show that they're acting in good faith, and they do it, but in the meantime, it didn't matter because this bill was already being made. So I just hope, and the other thing I do want to say that because there has been a lot of misinformation, and part of that is because it's a direct consequence of the lack of transparency. How can we know if nobody tells us what's going on? Then we have to start guessing, and then things start and rumors start. So if there had been some transparency and we knew what was going on and people were included, not excluded, then it might have saved a lot of more, hard feelings. They're a part of our community. I'm grateful for all of you. You all serve our community, but they're a part of that. And they should have been included, and the commissioner should have been included because it affects our community. So I just, again, I'm not speaking out on the bill. I'm speaking out on the process of which it was done and the lack of transparency in which it was done. Because I think a lot of hard feelings and a lot of misinformation wouldn't have been started. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Healy. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Just to clear up a few points here, it was mentioned that some years ago there's 1,800 fire calls, now there's 5,000. Well, a good share of them are medical emergencies. So, in other words, when you got 4 or 5 guys at the fire station and 2 go on a medical emergency to the rest home and you got a fire, you only got 3 guys responding. So then they got to call out overtime guys or call volunteers. So, I mean, just making a point of clarification that most of them are medical calls. Over 80% are medical calls, not fire calls. So that's a point of clarification. The other thing is with all due respect, Chief Executive Gallagher, if you didn't know about this and you didn't have meetings, and we've hired a lobbyist, which you convinced us to do, and we're happy to do it, for $15,000 for the session, and you remember at first you thought we should have 45 or 50,000. We ended up at 15,000. That was between you and Mr. Noonan to report back to us what's going on at the legislature. That was the job. And if you're not reporting back to us what we're paid for with taxpayer money, if you didn't come back to us and explain to us what's going on at the legislature, what good does it do for us to have a lobbyist when you already got one in your office? Your assistant, Mr. Cambridge, he's over there doing the same. Whatever. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, but whatever he does, but he's over there doing the same thing. We're paying double money, but we're not getting no report back to us. And the Hard Rock mining bill, I did see about that, and that's a good bill. And even if it was something that all of us liked, it's just something that we should have a little more conversation about. So if you didn't have meetings with them and you let the fire chief, who's your employee, take charge and meet with these guys from Anaconda. Bill Everett was called. He never knew nothing about it, the Anaconda chief executive. He never knew nothing about this bill until he called you after we called him. Then he called you and said, what's going on? And he said, that don't have much effect on us in Anaconda. This is mostly a bill for Butte-Silver Bow. So, I do know what I'm talking about. So if you didn't do that and you didn't have meetings, you lack leadership because you weren't involved in that. And if you did do that, you lack leadership because you didn't report back to us. With all due respect, somehow something's not right in that conversation. Thank you.
Chief Executive Gallagher.
Wow. Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Commissioner Fisher. That's pretty directive. To say that we lack leadership because somebody drafted a bill to draft legislation that they saw as beneficial to it and is a senator, which you'll see is done throughout the session. Over 4,000 bills drafted. We do have lobbyists over there that are working for us that are doing that. to again accuse me of, without saying it, you say that I either had a secret meeting or I lack leadership. I take offense to that. I'll put it back on you, Commissioner Fisher. You have the accessibility to the same lobbyists. Every single legislator in here, or council member, has that ability, has every ability to look at the bills as well. You are the legislative branch. You have the same ability. So I would put it back the same way you did to me. You have that same ability. You authorize and hire the lobbyist as well, and they work for you. So there's some accountability on the legislative side as well. So I will say, I'm not going to say I lacked leadership. I think I showed leadership. I informed the council when we went over there and told you how I was going to testify, and I've been very transparent about how I was going to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Commissioner Healy.
Thank you. I didn't get that email, and I did as you suggested. I looked for the other link or volunteer fire, whatever you thought it might be under. I didn't have that either. So I never got any information about you going over there. I didn't get that email. And I don't know why I didn't get that email. But I looked for it, and I don't have a lot of emails because I only started in January. And I went through junk, I went through, so I'm not saying that something nefarious went on. I'm just saying something happened, and I did not get that email. I did not get any information about this, that this was going to happen.
Thank you, Commissioner Healy. Yeah, definitely not the venue to be discussing that. Reach out to the IT team and see if they can help you on that process. Okay. The one thing that I want to say, and I don't know if this needs to be said or not, but I'm going to say it anyway. One thing, regardless of House Bill 547, I want to make sure that the public who's out there listening, who's in this room, has good fire protection. Even though it appears, as we sit here at the courthouse tonight, there's a huge issue going on with the fire department, which politically there is. I will be the first one to admit it, as I had plenty of service on both sides. But I can tell you one thing, that if there's an emergency, both career and volunteers that are responding, you will be protected. And that is the one thing that people need to realize, is that even though there's differences in this room, there is a fire department that is coming to your aid that you will get superior service on. I can't stress that anymore. And we need to make sure that the public is aware of that, because I've seen it firsthand as a volunteer for many years in either a entry-level position, in a leadership position. They get the job done and they do it right. And that is the biggest thing, that if anybody takes anything away from this meeting, please be aware of that. With that, that's all I have to say on that. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, everyone. In closing, I'd just like to state that they say they're not taking nothing away. You're taking away the trustees, the elected people that made the decisions. They're gone. They're no longer going to have any position in the fire districts. The trustees will be gone. That's part of the bill. Down the road, with less volunteers, you're going to have to see, coming to budget time, more full-time employees on the fire department, because they're going to need them. That's a hard one to sell. And this safety issue is one thing. And anytime we go to budget, I've been on this commission 12 plus years. Every year we go to a meeting with the police or fire department, it's always about safety. It's an easy sell to the public. Safety. We all want safety. But the thing about it is, the budgets, taxes are high in Butte-Silver, and it's a retirement community, and people are getting tired of paying higher taxes. And the thing about it is there's going to come a time when, when we have to reorganize this. Like I said, the devil's in the details. Whether we support the bill or don't support the bill now, which I'm in opposition to, and I will remain opposition because of the process and procedure. But this council's going to have no say about it. But just remember, you're going to lose your trustees. They're going to be gone. You're probably going to look down the road to have more paid firemen, because they're going to need them, because the volunteers aren't going to respond as rapidly. And you're going to have one person leading the whole thing. not the trustees, not everyone. You're going to have one person works for the chief executive. Whomever the chief executive is in the future, that's who will appoint the fire chief and fire coordinator. And, you know, that's a big discussion that everyone says we never did have a separation of duties. We did. Years ago, we had a fire coordinator and we had a fire chief. It was in the 80s or the early 90s that actually one of my brothers and another fire chief decided to save the city and county money, that they'd consolidate the duties. They did that. It's worked great. Not great, but it's worked for some time. Now we're back to a single person there. So in closing, thank you, everyone. It's been a great discussion. No hard feelings with anyone. I wish everyone the best, and safety is an issue, and I hope it stays that way. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. I was just going to ask what's your pleasure on this communication, but we do have more questions. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. So we keep in the bill. I obviously I didn't read the whole thing as I should. I read points, but I don't see in the bill where the trustees go away. I don't understand. I don't read that in there. So if somebody could point me to where that specifies that in there, I'd be grateful for that. My other question is on the fact of getting rid of all the volunteer fire departments. I don't read that in there. I don't see that. I know that there's like this thing that this masked man's going to come out with that passes. They're going to shut all the firehouses down. And your point, Mr. Fisher, the 5,000 calls. Yeah, if two of the guys are out on a medical call and there is a fire, well, thank God that there is the volunteer fire department to back them up. Absolutely. And if they have to, this whole overtime thing I hear from all the public, if we have to pay more guys to come out to save my house for overtime, I don't care what you're paying them. For sure, taxes, right? It's all in the whatever, but we can't put a price on that. So with that being said, like there's so many of these points that are being put out to people, right, that aren't facts. So the fact that the trustee, like everybody listening tonight, Mr. Fisher, you have a powerful voice in our town. I appreciate that because I believe 99.9% of the things you say because I love you. But with that trustee thing, now everybody says that that's gone. I don't see that, and I don't understand that. So, I mean, we don't have to discuss that right now, so I'll have to look further for that. But there's got to be a start. There's got to be a new, fresh start to move forward for the safety of our town. What is working does not work now, and with all the hard feelings going on, it's going to just have to be moved forward in a positive direction. That's all we can do, but I definitely need to give somebody to answer them questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chairman Morgan. After Commissioner Fisher's last comments, I will jump in and make a motion to note communication 2025-158 and place it on file.
That's in the form of a motion? Okay, is there a second? Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place to note communication 2025-158 and place on file. Is there any, second was Commissioner O'Neill. Is there anything on the question? No. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive.
I don't know.
Chairman Morgan. I just got a question for the Chief Executive, if I could, please. We hired a lobbyist, and apparently he's over in Helena lobbying for us. And did he lobby for this, or do you have any idea how that went with our lobbyist? And if he did lobby for it, did he communicate with both sides to make sure he was doing what was best for the community?
Chief Executive Gallagher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Commissioner Callahan. So the lobbyist, I believe, was made aware of this, but he did not lobby and speak on behalf of this bill at the legislative session. So did he communicate with the volunteers? I do not know that. I'm sure that he had conversations with Senator Harvey and Hawk and Lynch and all of our legislative body that's over there. I'm sure that they're communicating with him as well. So our legislative group over there has been made aware of this, based on, I don't even think our lobbyists would really need to be doing that because our legislative body was aware of it, all of them that are over there representing Butte-Silver Bow. So I don't know that the lobbyist has done anything on behalf of this bill because I don't think they needed to, because Senator Harvey was the one that worked with Representative Damaris from Anaconda on this bill. So I don't think that there needed to be at all from our lobbyists to be working on this bill.
Okay, Commissioner Healy.
I guess there is something. I don't know how many of you have gone to volunteer fire department meetings, but I've gone to a couple just to hear their side. And to say that it's not going to change anything is not correct, because potentially some of them may quit. And so that leaves the rural community vulnerable, because there won't be someone there because of the deception, So it will change things. To say it won't change anything is not correct. It will change things because they have a choice too. And because of the way things, cause and effect. Something was done and now they're going to react to that. So it will affect our community.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Healy. We do have a motion on the floor to place communication 25-158 on file. Commissioner O'Leary, on the question.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I just have a few comments here. Commissioner Fisher, thank you for bringing this in front of the council. I also agree that the way that this happened is unfortunate. I think it would have been better if this process would have been a little bit more collaborative from the very beginning, and I hope things like this that affect our community in the future will end up in front of this council, in front of county staff, long before it ends up as a bill in the House or the Senate or the state. But we have this bill now. It's going through the process as we speak, so we are playing the hand we're dealt. The last couple days, I've spent several hours in phone conversations with people on both sides of this issue, just trying to get my head wrapped around what is going on with this and what the issues at hand are. And the thing I heard independently from both sides is that everybody wants to provide the best service for Butte-Silver Bow. Both sides said that to me unprompted. And I went away from both of these phone calls with a much more positive outlook than I expected. So I guess my point on that is that it's, I know there's a lot of negativity in the room. A lot of people are frustrated by this whole thing, but I know that is at the heart of this. Everybody wants the best thing for Butte-Silver Bow. So with that spirit in mind, I'd like to ask Director Osborne a quick question if he's willing. To Commissioner Healy's point, there is this risk, I guess, to the county that we have some volunteer members of volunteer departments that decide that they don't want to do this anymore because of this bill. And as a person who represents a rural part of our community, that's a possibly a major problem. And I know we discussed a lot of this, and I'd like just for your comments on this. What is the plan to integrate our volunteer fire departments operationally, as it's currently written in our charter, if this bill passes? And if you can just hit on some key points of what you would see as the changes if this bill happens, presuming it passes.
Director Osborne.
Yeah, Commissioner O'Leary, thanks for the question. So you're asking if this bill passes, what is the volunteers? Say that one more time. What was the exact question?
Commissioner O'Leary.
Operationally, primarily, I'm thinking from operations, from Butte-Silver Bow Fire Department operations. What is the plan to integrate? You know, there obviously is this major. There's a difference in how things are being done right now. The trainings are being done separately. The finances are being held separately, at least as far as I understand. You know, if this bill passes and it is found, or it goes into effect immediately, you know, Butte-Silver Bow is going to have to figure out how that's all going to play out. And, you know, I guess what I'm asking is, what plan do we have in place if this bill passes to make sure that there are no gaps in the unfortunate event that some of our volunteer departments or volunteer firefighters decided to walk away? You know, there is a potential gap that could be there. So what can be done, or what are we doing right now to make sure that there is no gaps in service?
Director Osborne.
Commissioner O'Leary. So I'll just start by one of your first comments on when you said that we have the same operations or the same finances. That is kind of true and kind of not. As everybody knows, in 1977, the charter was written, and we were under one operation and financial umbrella. State law passed in 1979, and all of that took a major halt. So our operations, and especially our finances, got very, very difficult. I'll start with operations. So operational, as everybody knows, we have a battalion chief that is in charge of each shift. We have 4 shifts at the career department. We have 9 volunteer departments that fall underneath the Butte-Silver Bow Fire Department. There's also 2 other volunteers, 2 other volunteer departments, Melrose and Walkerville, that are within Butte-Silver Bow, but not within our department. So operationally, we have a career department that is required to follow and uphold many, many hours of training, have different credentials, all led by the shift leader, which is that battalion chief. The volunteers, they do train. I'm not saying anything that the volunteers do not train. Where we fall short is when we do not train together. I kind of like to use an example of being on a football team, if you can kind of use your imagination. We have a head coach that just wants to be successful, wants everybody to be successful, be safe. We have a assistant coach who wears a different uniform, practices all by himself, never trains, never practices with the head coach. We have another coach that wears an even different uniform, also practices by himself, and we could go on and on. We have 5 different coaches, 9 different coaches with different uniforms practicing by themselves. How would they be as a football team if they tried to come together and play on a team and play a game? Never having to practice and ran plays together as a team. They would not be successful. We have been, sure, we've been successful in putting out fires. We go and put out fires, and we go on medical calls. 68% of our calls are medical calls. And fortunately, nobody has been killed in a long time. We have had injuries. We had a major injury a couple years ago. When you do not have a structural plan, training, operations, a clear chain of command, a clear incident command at incidents, things can go terribly wrong. When there is not one person at that incident that is in charge, communication falls through the cracks. People don't know where people are at. People don't even know who is on scene. There's departments that just have showed up on scene without getting dispatched. That incident command has no idea that they're even on scene, let alone knowing what their capabilities are in training to give them a certain job. I think, because I've been told that the volunteers are trained in wildland, trained in SCBA use, trained in different things. I have no idea. That battalion chief on scene, the incident command, has no idea. How is he supposed to run a scene when he does not know the capabilities, the training of all people on that incident? What if he gives a job to a new volunteer fireman that he doesn't know hasn't done that training? What would happen there? Where would that liability come back to? It would come back to us. We're falling short. We are extremely falling short. So when we say this bill is about safety and we have some disagreements, it all falls back to safety. It's operational structure safety altogether. As far as finances go, as the Director of Fire Services, the finance or the umbrella of the entire fire service initially falls into my hands. I approve, I ask questions to finance, to Chief Executive and County Attorney. It originally comes to me, and I have to sign off on what is put on my desk. Anything that the career department does, spends money on, trains on, I have approval, disapproval. I know exactly where every cent is going. As far as the volunteers, they are under the Butte-Silver budget. I approve, disapprove, ask questions. Once things are approved and that check is sent to volunteer departments or fire council, nobody knows where a single cent of that is going. That should raise a red flag to all of us. All taxpayers should know what their tax dollars are going towards. It scares me to death that I have to sign off on something that I have no idea where the money is going. Explanations have been short to none if I ask any questions of what that money is getting spent. And I'm not saying it's a enormous amount of money. The volunteers are funded. They are insured. They have fuel in their rigs. They have equipment on their trucks. They have gear on their backs. We equip them as best as we can with the budget that we have. Financially, it's a difficult situation that has been almost impossible for the last 50 years to try to control, not knowing where money is going. I hope I answered as good as I can possibly can, Commissioner O'Leary.
Follow-up, Commissioner O'Leary.
Yeah, thank you. I guess mostly what I'm asking is in the wake of this bill, you know, the bill is, it's gonna, if it passes, it's gonna create some changes. And what I'm asking is if, what Butte-Silver, your department, maybe this is a question for the Chief Executive as well, what we as a city are going to be doing to make sure that there's not disruption. I mean, agree with everything you said. I appreciate that. But just in the wake of this bill particularly.
Chief Executive Gallagher.
Yeah, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner O'Leary, I'd like to address that. And this is kind of where I've gone in what I've said, even when testifying. If this bill passes, it comes back under the charter. The charter will allow for the Director of Fire Services to coordinate those trainings. So he can direct or have his training officer coordinate those services with trainings with them. So if volunteers, are just that, they have the right to continue, or if they choose that they feel that this is not a fair bill, they will have the choice to separate from the volunteer services. But I believe that having training available to advance volunteers along with the paid fire department. If you look at our paid fire department, it is comprised of many, many volunteers that came up through the ranks. So coordinating those services, I think, will only be a benefit for them. So to the other point of this, and as Director Osborne talked about, it will be my directive to Chief Osborne that he sits down like I do with every director in Butte-Silver and develop a budget that we're all accountable for. That the chiefs still remain the chiefs of their volunteer fire departments. We don't want to take away any of that function that is there, but it'll be my directive to Chief Osborne to sit down and develop a budget every single year and then go through that line item, just like we do with everybody else, developing a budget to what the needs are for the volunteers. That's what hasn't really happened, and that's not the fault of the volunteers, or it's just the system has been broken, and that lack of accountability and trust hasn't been there. And so that's where we can bring that back in. And to another point, this Council of Commissioners, when brought back into the charter, will have way more authority over what happens with this fire department than they ever had. This body will be given control because nothing legislatively could be changed in the fire department without you doing that per our charter. So that's something to think about as well.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Is there anything else on the question? Commissioner Callahan.
I'd just like to comment once again on the safety issue. Mr. Osborne, you had mentioned safety. It really concerns you that when a volunteer department shows up and nobody's there running it. Every volunteer department has a fire chief. They answer to that fire chief. They're not elected as a fire chief unless they're qualified. One other issue, you're talking about putting people out there that it's an unsafe condition. In your tenure, you had pretty consistently $250,000 in a budget for equipment for the fire departments. And for probably 3 years, you were adamant. You refused to spend it on radios and pagers. What is one of the most important tools a fireman has? A radio. If you're out there fighting fire, how can you communicate? How can you tell the guy running the fire where you're at or what you're doing if you don't have a radio? How many of these fellas have been out there at fires and don't have a radio? Can you respond to that?
Director Osborne.
Commissioner Callahan, yes, sir. Safety and communication go hand in hand. In the last 3 years, $192,000 was spent on the volunteers through the Tiffet Fund. Many of that $192,000 was spent on radios and pagers. Every volunteer that is on scene under the direction of that chief has a radio, and the training falls back on that chief to train every volunteer to use that radio in the best of its capabilities. If this bill passes, training will be to the utmost importance between paid and volunteer to always be on the same page, practice communication, which they never have. It's hard to practice when we are in a ball game, so they will practice. In fact, I'm working on a budget that is due here next week, and more radios and more pagers are getting asked. But a lot of that $192,000 in the last 3 years through the TIFID went to pagers and radios.
Follow-up, Commissioner Callahan.
Well, and I just want to clarify that. For the first 3 years, you refused. Every time we advised to buy some radios, you said, don't ask, we're not spending money on radios. We're going to find a better way to use these radios. We're not spending that kind of money. And finally, when the TIFID finally sunsetted, you went ahead and spent the whole pot and then bought some radios with it. Up to that point, that was not, you fought us tooth and nail and would not buy radios and pagers. You just blatantly said, we're not spending money on radios, don't ask. So most of the departments knew they weren't getting them, so they didn't ask. Is that not true?
Director Osborne.
Commissioner Callahan, Chair, that is false, Commissioner Callahan. I don't have the papers right in front of me, but I can definitely get everything that was spent through the TIFID fund, through requests from the volunteers for the last 4 years. That's how many years I've been the Director of Fire Services. So if you would like proof that your statement is wrong, that I did not buy any radios or pagers, I can definitely get that.
Thank you, Director Osborne. We do have a motion on the floor. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Healy.
So I've heard a lot about how communication is important and it's part of the problem. Why did you not communicate and include the volunteers in this important bill?
Director Osborne.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Commissioner Healy. My answer is very similar to Chief Executive answer on that one. I respect everybody's opinion and the transparency issue that we are having. It was a problem. I'm not shying away from that at all. This was not a bill that was drafted by me. I did not know when the bill was drafted. I was asked months ago that if they did draft it, would I support it, and is that something that would be successful to the department? There was no meetings with Chief Executive Gallagher. I did not know that the bill was getting finalized, and if you are familiar at all with the way the legislature works, we did not know when that bill was getting heard from the House. So I would say my best answer to you is I wish there was more time from when it was finalized to when JP sent it out to everybody. I did not involve the volunteers or anybody in this room because I didn't know that it was going to come to fruition. And if it wasn't going to happen, why stir the pot if something wasn't going to happen? And when it did happen, it happened fast, and it almost surprised me as much as it surprised anybody else.
Okay, follow-up, Commissioner Healy.
So, but you knew it was being written and you knew it was going to happen. You didn't know it was going to be written, the bill wasn't being written until a couple days before?
Director Osborne.
I can say that I knew that they were possibly writing the bill, and that if they wrote the bill and finalized it, would I support the bill? We needed clarification by few to even know that this was happening, so I didn't contact anybody because I didn't really know that it was happening, and I didn't know that it was going to happen that fast. That's my best answer that I can give you. Apologize.
Thank you. Commissioner Fisher?
I thought the last one I'd said in closing, but if you didn't have no knowledge of this bill and Chief Executive didn't have no knowledge of the bill, where'd this thing initiate? Where'd this all start in November of 24? If no one knew nothing about it, JP claims he didn't know nothing, you didn't know nothing. Derek Harvey's in Helena. I mean, before that he was, at the fire station or come back off work when he hurt his knee, but somebody had to start this ball rolling. And I guess right now, I was ready to give up for the night, but now I'm starting to wonder, somebody had to plant the seed in order to grow this. I mean, it just didn't fall out of the air. Somebody had to have an idea that House Bill 547, which gutted the bill from 1979, somebody had that plan and idea long before, and the study came in about the same time, which we had a big dispute over getting the study report, which I wasn't here last week. I had other volunteer obligations. So, I mean, who started this? Where did this all come from? I mean, if nobody had no meetings and nobody had nothing going on, how did we get this fantastic bill to just fall in everybody's lap and all of a sudden, 26th of February, bingo, we get 72 to 24 vote? How did this all happen if no one had any knowledge of it?
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. That might be a good question for the bill drafter, more so than this body. Is there anything else on the question? Director Osborne.
I did not write the bill. The people at the legislature wrote the bill. I was contacted that if the bill came to fruition, would I support the bill?
Thank you, Director Osborne. Okay, there is a motion on the floor. Is there anything else on the question? All right, the motion is to place communication. Let me make sure I get the right one. 2025-158 on file. Is there anything on the question? Is that Commissioner Anderson? Did I state the motion correctly? Thank you. The motion is to note communication 2025-158 and place on file. Seeing nothing on the question, would everyone... Okay, would anyone like to change their vote? Okay, would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yeas, 0 nay.
Thank you. Thank you. The motion passes. Moving on to public comment on any public matter that's not on the agenda. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak on any public comment that's not on the agenda, now would be your opportunity. Please state your name and address for the record. Oh, there you go. Oh. Nope.
You there? Okay.
Yes.
My name's James Corbett. I live at 911 Nevada Avenue. I've been here a few times. A whole set of documents in the portfolio that was in this courthouse apparently got moved. Not of my approval. I've had trouble dealing with this. There's been some serious fraud manipulations done, and I'm hoping that somebody who might be listening to this is done over a cell phone number. My old phone number, they have it completely impersonated. I've been impersonated. There's a lot of things that have been done in my name and or by some power of attorney that I don't have approved, that I am not approved anybody to do any of this. There's a lot of shady stuff going on, and it's really hard for me to figure this out, but it's all come down to somebody's can impersonate me, identity theft, just a very huge, terrible, epic situation in my life. So I'm hoping that somebody who's listening, who may be listening, there's been meetings set up that I never show up to, pisses people off. I've almost engaged and encountered with the correct people that might be able to shed some light on my situation. I've got gang stalking and just as people follow me around, block my access to the correct people. I always know if I'm at the right place because there's a lot of people that show up. But best I can tell about the situation, and this isn't an AI thing, this has been going on for years. And so people believe they're talking to me and texting me on a phone to meet them somewhere, and it's not me. So I need maybe that somebody, the correct people know that it's not me on the phone. If you want to get a hold of me, you have to get a hold of me in person, because it doesn't matter what computer, what email, what phone, new phones, new phone numbers, it's all hacked. This is a terrible, epic situation. I've got a long story I could go into for hours. And, you know, I've been heckled. There's just stuff going on that was part of my portfolio that's just absolutely insane. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. But I didn't really prepare anything. I know you guys have a long night or whatnot, but I'm just hoping that the correct individuals know it's not me on the phone. I did not make any deals. I did not give property away. I did not give anybody the authority, the right to manipulate my documents, take them out of here, or alter my life and my situation to the point that it is. I've ended up on Social Security disability and live in frickin' poverty. And people have gotten a hold of a lot of stuff of mine, bank accounts, money, it's all vanished. And figuring this out is beyond me. I need help with this situation, and I'm not getting it. It needs to be detectives, lawyer, you know, get a lawyer, da-da-da-da-da. Well, you can't afford a lawyer when you're on Social Security disability. And I've been denied legal services by the legal services place down here on Park a couple times. Been to the governor's office, about every office you can think of in this state. And with my situation, there should have been somebody to step up and help me with this. I've been denied meetings, I've been denied help with any of this. Continually, a little runaround. Everybody knows about this, everybody knows who I am, somebody passed my picture around, well, at least I'm grateful for that, they've made me popular. But it's to shame me and to get me to not go out in public. They've altered my medical records, they've messed up medications. This is a really terrible situation, but that's all I have to say for tonight. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on any items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed?